I see him. He's going up towards the fort.
You might try getting on a cannon. There's one in range, I think. Oh, he's with you?
Oh, here he is. Yeah, I see him.
Zoom! In half!
Oh, he got hit by lightning and died. Hey, you beautiful buccaneers, Falcore here. So as you all know, Sea of Thieves is a place of legend, where all those pirate stories of old, such as the Kraken, the Undead, and the Merfolk, are in fact real. But all of these tales were in fact a fabrication of real-life events. So I thought, as a new video series, I'd delve into some of these better-known tales and how they link up with the Sea of Thieves. So if you've always been a fan of pirate lore, you've probably all heard about Davy Jones and Davy Jones' locker. And you're probably all familiar with this lovely mug from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Dead Man's Chest, which aired in 2006. Whoa, 2006, that's like 14 years ago. Wow! Now I feel old. Davy Jones, a human and a great sailor, fell in love with Calypso, a sea goddess. She entrusted him with the task of ferrying the souls of those who died at sea to the next world. Calypso gave him the Flying Dutchman to accomplish this task. She swore that after 10 years she would meet him and they would spend one day together before he returned to his duties. However, when Jones returned to the shore after 10 years, Calypso failed to appear. Believing Calypso had betrayed him, a heartbroken and enraged Davy Jones turned the pirate brethren against her. But Jones still loved Calypso, and in his despair and guilt from what he had done, he carved out his own heart from his chest and placed it in his dead man's chest, or locker. So essentially, David Jones and the Flying Dutchman are very similar to the Ferryman and the Ferry of the Damned, except the Ferryman doesn't look half as cool, and he never fell in love with a sea god, and he doesn't have a locker with his heart in it, and he doesn't have a squid beard. But you get my point. But this entire story of Davy Jones is in fact the fabrication of Disney and was actually written by Ted Elliott in 2001 in the movie's pre-production. The real story of Davy Jones is not nearly as elaborate, but still pretty interesting. Not to be mistaken with the almost as epic David Bowie, who was actually born David Jones but changed his name to avoid confusion with this tale. Rest in peace, Ziggy. Side note, how awesome would it be if David Bowie was at the helm of the Ferry of the Damned?
This is ground control.
Davy Jones' locker was a fable among sailors that began in the 17th century during the golden age of piracy. Every sailor who boarded a ship were allowed to bring one personal effect with them, their locker. It was essentially a large shoebox-sized lockbox that contained their personal belongings, and anything they found on their travels and wanted to bring home with them. Davy Jones was said to be a demon of the seas, and was in no way human in description. He was said to have disc-like eyes, black skin, and several rows of teeth, and would often be seen sitting in the crossarms of sails during storms, licking his lips and clapping in the hopes that the crew would fall to the depths of the ocean where he could trap their souls within his locker. The earliest mention of a David Jones was from the Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue by Francis Gross, published in 1811, including the definition, David Jones, the devil, the spirit of the sea. But the name itself is said to be derived from several stories that were fabricated into Davy Jones by pirates telling other pirates different versions of stories they had heard from other crews in outposts and taverns. You see, back in the golden age of piracy, the world was in the process of being discovered. Trade companies from different countries were being established, and most active ports in the world were a hive of different cultures and crews, all sharing the same mead and sharing stories about the sea. The African traders spoke of an entity called a Duffy. A Duffy is a part of Bantu folklore. A Duffy can be either the manifestation of a soul of a dead person or a malevolent supernatural being, whereas the English would tell tales of Jonah, a figure mentioned in the Hebrew Bible who was a man who betrayed God's wishes and as punishment was swallowed by a large fish. These two names, Duffy and Jonah, and the tales that revolved around both of them eventually became the tale of Duffy Jonah, which over time, mainly due to Western influence, slowly evolved into the name Davy Jones. So Davy Jones was never a real pirate, and his locker was basically a metaphor for a ship graveyard, the bottom of the sea. His name was basically the fabrication of several stories being passed around during the 17th century that were all born of fable, and eventually evolved into its own fable. It's a bit like when you tell your friends you took on an entire galleon crew with 1 bullet and skill, but what actually happened was you sank an AFK sloop and an outpost with a mega keg.